And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only podcast on the internet that knows that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
And we know that because we are doctors.
Not doctors.
I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Arnshaw.
And on this week's episode, we're talking about the sad death of Jason Arday and Nigel Farage's victory at the Clacton by-election.
Turning to the international scene, we'll be discussing Ukraine's attacks against Wildberries, the Amazon of Russia, as well as the fun story of Scott Bessent's amazing journey into the currency markets.
In the United States, we'll be looking at Donald Trump's hiding techniques when he flies internationally. And for the big think of this week, we'll be talking about the morality of right-wing voters and why they just don't care anymore. And we will end that all with some good news. That'll be everything on Doctors Right Doctors starting right now. Patrick.
Chris.
Well, it's been another hot week here in the UK.
Yeah, it's the end of our fifth heat wave of the summer, Chris.
Fifth heat wave of the summer. And did you get the giant loud alarm the other day?
I did. I absolutely thought for a little second that World War III had actually begun. I had a flashback to when I was a child, and you would all of a sudden have like the American TVs. They would suddenly go,
yeah,
and it'd be a test to the emergency broadcast network, right?
The EBT, whoa. Yeah. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system.
This is only a test.
If this wasn't a test, you would hear instructions after womp, womp, womp. Oh, it was so scary when you're a kid because it was like, it would just pop on in the middle of stuff. Like
they had no respect whatsoever for TV time, or for the fact that, you're watching He-Man and God damn it, they're not going to go back. They're not going to like rewind. You're going to miss all the great.
Oh yeah.
Dialogue.
It's live television.
Yeah.
You just missed it. It's not like you can go backwards. There was no TiVo. There was no streaming.
Exactly.
Oh, it was so concerning. Yep. Yeah,
it was the fucking Stone Ages, Chris.
It was, and now the UK has adopted a very similar system where everybody's in. If you are in the UK and you have a mobile phone that is on, you will get a message from the government. Everyone gets one, and it tells you whatever the warning is. And it just happened to say, "P.S. There's a drought on right now. Everything's really dry. Do not barbecue. Do not throw your cigarettes out there. Basically, don't start any fires." Intentionally or unintentionally. It's all very serious. I mean, there's a lot of dry land right now. A lot of dried out like fields, parks. So because we're just hoping that
literal garden, which is no longer capable of sustaining life, Chris. It turns out.
That's what grass is for. The top level of grass. It comes back very quickly if and when it rains. And we are expecting some rain now in the coming week and hopefully not too long into the next week. But yeah.
I'm going to buy a goat, Chris, and I may or may not sacrifice it to the gods. We'll see.
And speaking of sacrificing goats to the god, I watched The Odyssey a couple of days ago.
Really? Do tell, Chris.
As we were talking about, yes, I watched The Odyssey. It's a very engaging movie for being over 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Because we got there at 9:00 at night, and we didn't leave till nearly 1:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So, there was like
how much of that were the ads before the movie, Chris?
Probably 20 minutes.
Damn.
So I mean, it's still quite a long movie, but you didn't find yourself slipping out of. Well, not me. I was actually like, oh well, let's see what's next. The lady sitting next to me, not my partner, but the lady sitting next to me.
Okay, all right.
She was bored out of her mind. I looked over every once in a while, and she was just eyes closed, head back, because obviously she's only here because whoever her date was wanted to see it. She was completely uninterested, and I'm just like, what a waste. It's not because it's not
Chris,
cheap.
When you've read it as many times as she had,
That's true. She was just trying to absorb the interpretation of Christopher Nolan.
Exactly. So that's it. To each their own, man. I'm not here to judge.
Good for her. But yeah, it was a pretty good movie. It's not like a classic blockbuster. It's telling a story. And it's done in its own way, and I think it's all right. All right.
Yeah. Very cool.
Let's move on to obviously first the sad news here in the UK that we all kind of popped onto our screens. I think about yesterday.
Yeah.
So today is the 16th of August, and 2 days ago, the person we were talking about last week, Jason Arday, who was a Cambridge professor, was found dead in his Battersea flat.
Yeah.
And so obviously, this is a very sad time for his family and his friends.
Yep.
And the people who were very adamant that, this guy needed to lose his job, this person, whatever, they are now scrambling because there has been a concerted effort by the media to very much push this guy, at least get him out of basically the public sphere, get him out of academia, put him back to where they think he belongs. Because now after his death, there's now been a debate going on online about, effectively whose fault this is. And the right-wing people who are pushing the he should go argument are blaming Cambridge. They're blaming DEI. They're blaming all that stuff. And then the left wing are blaming the papers and the publications who spent a disproportionate amount of time covering this person's story.
Right. And I kind of want to say to the assembled people having this debate, kids, you're both monsters, because I'm sorry. On the one hand, yes, it is true that Jason Arday does appear to have been a serial fabulist and, does really appear to have, committed some plagiarism. And that sucks. He should not have been hired for the position he was hired in the first place. He was not qualified for it. He got that position over other people who appear to be more qualified. Interestingly enough, for the racists out there, two of the people who didn't get the job because he got it were women of African descent. So, so this, you could, if you wanted to, suddenly turn this into, actually, this is a story about patriarchy. But I feel like that's not the best way to go at this point, right?
No.
So on the one hand, yes, clearly there were issues there, and Jason Arday should not have been in that job. At the same time, Jason Arday should not be dead,
No.
It is so far beyond what justice would ever have required, and it is absolutely true that the media basically monstered him,
They did. And this is, I think, a point that was being made by Femi, who is this, the EU campaigner, the left wing campaigner now. He's basically saying, there are so many people who you've never heard of, who are in their fields, very famous, or they're very well off, and they have just as many accusations against them. People like, what's this person? And then people are now starting to point this out, that there are all these people who basically plagiarize, lie, and their lives are simply fine. There is also people at Cambridge who were basically convicted is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. They were kicked out of Cambridge, or they were accused in Cambridge of sexual harassment, and they got to come back. And there's people who were plagiarizing, and they got to come back. And not just Cambridge, but kind of higher education, academia, higher learning. There are so many stories of people who were absolutely just ripping other people off. And you just say, oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because the kind of the unifying thread here is that they're all white. And it's a shame because, there are people like, oh, God. So many people who have been.
We need to be somewhat cautious here, because naming names obviously is, could open us up to legal liability, right? And defamation law in the UK is not the same as defamation law in the United States. So we're not going to mention names, although if you do a little bit of Googling, I'm sure you can find, some of the people that we're going to be discussing here. But there's allegations against one well-known professor who basically just sort of appears to have used a bunch of his own students' work in his published articles, right? So, and to the point where, he had praised the student's work when he'd graded and handed it back, saying, this is fantastic, this is excellent, this is so well put, and then using those exact quotes that he had praised in his own published work without any attribution whatsoever, right? And the professor claims that this is all inadvertence. He was just copying from the wrong file. His sorting system is just a total mess. You see, and I mean, come on, Even if that is true, that's obscenely negligent. And, that's the kind of thing that you should resign for. Even if it is completely innocent, it's scandalous, right? You've never heard this man's name, though. And unless you go looking for it, you're not going to,
And that's really what it is. Unless you know what to look for, unless you know kind of, how to deal with it. And here's another one that this isn't an academic, but remember Brian Williams from NBC, who made all these stories up about going to Iraq and stuff?
Yes, I do.
Actually. So he's another person who, he was found to have lied about his job, and then it's like, okay, well, you can go away for a while, and then you can come back and go back. He came back to MSNBC, right? So you kind of disappear, let the story die down. But that's the difference between Arday and some of these other people, is that they were not letting the story die down. I remember just before I heard that he had died, there was a story on, I think, the Times, and the story in the Times is effectively, I've gone through all of his data, and a lot of it doesn't make any. And so there's somebody scouring his thesis, they're scouring his stuff because they just want to disintegrate this guy. And in a way that they weren't going after somebody like Brian Williams, for example, right?
Yep.
And if Brian Williams was to want to write for the Times or the Telegraph or something, or Politico, whatever, they'd be like, fine, come on, Brian Williams, write it out. Oh yeah, there was that one time you lied about, your reporting experiences, but that's okay. Continue to do the thing that that you lied about, and we're going to just kind of say everybody makes mistakes. But when it came to Jason Arday,
there will be no second chances for Jason Arday.
No, there are none.
And there weren't going to be. And I suspect that may have figured into his decisions. And that's a horrible thing to say.
I mean,
I don't like
it. We can't speculate, but I think that none of us have been under the magnifying glass, scrutiny of the entire British press establishment. I mean, this dude could not have gone home, right? Because the press would be camped outside of his house or his friend's house. They'd be going to anyone. They'd be scouring his social media to figure out, who he knew, where they go, where do they work, to get even more information on him so that they can continue to rip this dude's life apart. I'm reminded of this story that Chris Bryant said in the Commons, and I always go back to it because it's such a powerful a narrative. He's basically Chris Bryant is a gay man who is now was a government minister. I don't know if he made it through the Burnham change, but he was, I think, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media, and Sport, or maybe Technology. I can't remember which one, but. A few years ago, he told the story about the press. And effectively, he wasn't out at the time, and the press basically I think they had gotten his voicemails, and so they started releasing his voicemails. They started releasing information about him, making all these rumors across the tabloids, then. The story that he told in the Commons was that he was in the Strangers Bar, and a journalist went up to him and then saying, "We're taking a poll on when you'll kill yourself."
Wow.
And this was a thing that you're just like, that's insane. Why would you, one, tell him, and two, what the fuck? So there is this weird a fascination with a certain kind of people who get up to a little bit too high, and the establishment works to cut them down. Unfortunately, Arday doesn't seem to have the defense that you would need to defend himself from the accusations, and maybe but again, there's I was saying this thing here from Inside Higher Education College, a bunch of sources here. Who gets accused of academic cheating? It's almost of the 12% of students who get accused, above average are Black and Asian students. Who gets falsely accused of cheating? It's almost always Black students or Latinos. White students are very rarely accused of cheating. So it's weird that we're still having to deal with these very old prejudices.
Yeah.
But it's clear that because the person who daubed him in the first time was a massive racist.
Yeah.
Who, even, just a few days ago once the revolution comes, he'll be the head of eugenics at some university, right? And race science, whatever, because, just get him his armband and put him in the fucking parade. So it's almost very sad.
Well, it is. And it's almost like this story is almost like perfectly calibrated for the shit times that we live in, right? Because on the one hand, it's perfectly calibrated for the right to claim that this is proof of DEI gone wild. Because it does appear to have been a situation where you have people at Cambridge who really liked his story and didn't want to dig too deeply into it because it was a story that sort of worked with how they wanted to see themselves. Cambridge having a very, very long history of, being very, very white, and knowing that that's kind of problematic and wanting to do something really big to move past it. And perhaps that's why they decided to go for a guy with such a dramatic life story, right? Yeah. And when the truth is too good to check, maybe you just don't check it, right? So on the one hand, the right wing gets to claim this is DEI gone mad. At the same time, though, what you've got is I don't know, man. Like it's a perfect opportunity for all the racists to just show their asses, just 100% go above and beyond to make clear to everyone, well, this has nothing to do with academic integrity, because look at all the white people that we don't talk about who have been caught with committing acts of plagiarism that are worse than this, right?
Oh, and it's more than plagiarism. It's sexual harassment. It's a whole bunch of things, and yet, the only two that we really remember the former president of Harvard and Jason Arday.
Right. Well, actually, I'd like to fix that a little because I'd like to talk about an academic by the name of Alice Goffman.
Sure.
So Alice Goffman was a kind of similar story, Chris, to Jason Arday. So several years back, she in her dissertation, she was doing anthropology. And her dissertation was called On the Run, Fugitive Life in an American City.
Okay.
This was published in 2014. She made a book out of it and she was able to publish it, right? And in this, she described her ethnographic encounters of hanging out with, fugitives in an American city, right? And writing about, what their life was like and how they lived it and what they did. And she described her going out with them on, murders.
Oh my God.
And basically, here's the thing. If we believe everything that she wrote in her dissertation, she is an accomplice to murder.
Right.
And committed crimes that should put her in jail for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Of course, she did not go to jail for a very, very long time because, of course, none of it fucking happened. She just made it up, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of obvious if you read it seriously, hang on a minute, either you're doing something that any lawyer would say, why would you ever say this in public? Are you insane? Or, she just had decided that this, whatever she had found out there when she was talking to people, assuming that she did go out and actually do the field work, she just decided to punch it up, make it spicier. I don't know, add to the story, right?
Yeah, that's called fiction. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this is, any way you slice it, a massive academic sin. Like this is the opposite of academia. Like you cannot do this and claim to be doing anything approaching science, right?
Of course.
So she was found out.
All right.
And what happened was she was no longer the bright academic star who was going to be like the big new thing. Instead, she just moved on with her life and got a new position and is still in academia.
See, that's what's wild about it.
Right. Second chances, Chris. Second chances. Some people get them. Some people don't.
And you, how many people would have heard that story?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We don't, as a media consuming society, seem to really like this is about college professors. No one gives a damn about college professors. No one ever has. That's not what any of this was. This was just an opportunity for people to just absolutely be their worst selves on the internet. And now a man is dead.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
And this will not stop them from doing this again to the next bright, young, not white person who rises too far at the wrong institution.
Yeah.
So, That's unfortunate. I think we should leave it there.
Yeah.
And move on to something slightly more ridiculous, the Clacton by-election.
Oh, good. I need a laugh.
Yes. Well, for those of you who are paying attention, the Clacton by-election happened last week on the 13th of August. And it's not that big of a surprise. Nigel Farage won that election.
No way.
Pretty handily. Got 63% of the vote.
Wow.
With Count Benface, your friend and mine, coming in a respectable second with 26.9% of the vote.
Well, all right. All hail our intergalactic, warlord.
One day. But that, I mean, but of course,
working his way up there. Huge increase in his vote share. Yeah.
Well, he didn't stand there
right?
in the last election. So he's brand new.
How big is 26.9 compared to 0, Chris? It's infinitely big. That's infinitely growth.
Big. Yes.
Infinite growth, Chris. Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Count Benface doing it again. But of course, Nigel Farage and the Faragites were all claiming that this election now has absolved him of any wrongdoing, and that there's nothing more than anyone can say, and he doesn't need to listen to the House of Commons. He's his own man doing his own thing.
He's been washed in the blood of the electorate, Chris.
Yes, he has. He's been washed in the purifying waters of the electorate. Their tears have come down and cleaned him so that he is no longer a person who still has very large questions over the amount of money that he was given and the reasons why, and even more money and the kind of people that he was surrounding himself with, like convicted felons. But we don't have to worry about that.
Hang on, Chris. Sorry, I'm just getting word in my ear. Yes. It turns out it's the other thing. No, he still has all those questions to answer. And it turns out that, he is still surrounded by a bunch of, lowlifes and thugs and
just terrible people.
So that's great.
So, it seems like, so despite having won an election where no serious candidate or other party was standing, the investigation in Nigel Farage has automatically reopened. And we could be in a position now where in the next weeks or months, when Parliament comes back on the 1st of September, we could be in a position where Nigel Farage, or not too long after that, has to, there might be another recall petition put. Now, here's the thing. Now, Farage is saying he increased his percentage of the vote, and that is true. He got 63% of the vote. In the 2024, he got 44% of the vote. Let me just check real quick. 46% of the vote in 2024.
Wow, huge increase.
Huge increase.
How can we explain this?
How can we explain this? Yes, because no one else stood who could take any larger amount of the vote. So the actual percentage of people who voted in the last election was down. There was no conservative candidate, no Labor candidate, because a conservative candidate in 2024 took 12,000 votes, and Nigel Farage got 21,225 votes in 2024. Would you like to know how many votes he got in 2026?
I would like nothing better.
He got 22,239 votes. So his vote went up by 1,000 people. But because of the distribution of votes, it is a much higher percentage, because between everyone else, it's not even close, where Count Benface got 9,455 votes. So obviously, of those who came to vote, obviously the majority voted for Nigel Farage. But this is the problem for Farage. He still, if he is found to have broken the rules of the House of Commons, the House of the Standards Committee and the Commons itself can basically say, we want to suspend you for, I believe, 10 days. If it's over 10 days, 10 days or more, just like Boris Johnson found out and a bunch of others, an automatic recall petition is put. Now, this doesn't mean you're not a member of Parliament anymore. It just means that if somebody wants to recall you for doing this, that you need to get 10% of your community, of the constituency, to go to recall polling stations and write, yes, I want to recall. It's just sign your name. Yes, I want to recall. I want to recall. I want to recall. I want to recall. It requires just 10% of the vote.
And what percent did Count Benface get there, Chris?
26.9.
So we just really need about 40% of Count Benface's voters to think to themselves, I have already done something very, very funny, which is support Count Benface in the election. Could I do something even funnier and make it happen all over again?
Yeah, and this is the issue.
Yeah,
this is the issue, is that he can. We could have another by-election. So now the question is, how long does Farage stay? I mean, if nothing happens, and obviously there's nowhere for him to go. Everything's fine. But reform is clearly plateaued in its popularity. It is a one-man party. And if the one man in that party is no longer seen to be a man of the people, I guess that means that maybe that man's got to go now. Like every other party he's ever run, he becomes the face of it, whether it be Brexit or UKIP or whatever. And then you get the other kind of weird people to come underneath him who also have the same ambition to be bigger than him. And then he pushes them all down. But then something happens and he's just like, nope, I'm out. It's no longer fun. I am no longer, benefiting from this. So yeah,
he does not play well with others, Chris.
He does not play well. I think that's the best way of putting it. He doesn't play well with others, and he very well could be playing with himself soon. So I think it's gonna be an interesting couple of weeks, probably a month or two, and it'd be really funny if there's new investigations open because of all the stuff that's come out in the interim. So I think unless you want to say anything, we'll leave it there.
I will just say that Nigel Farage has rapidly become the gift that keeps on giving. So, and I don't think that he particularly wants that to be true, but there it is, Chris. There it is.
I don't think he wants that to be true either. I think he wanted to be the attack dog. I will end with this. Letting you know how crazy the field was. A few weeks ago, we listed all the parties that were standing. So many more joined in the interim. I mean, they must have joined in and nobody reported on them. But just to make you aware, the Monster Raving Loony Party had 3 candidates.
Well, they're just going to split the Monster Raving vote, Chris.
I think so. And they definitely did. I mean, had they just had one candidate, they would have come in 30th. So I think we'll leave it there, and I think we'll move on to the international section where we're talking about Wildberries. And for fairness, I'm just going to admit it. I thought a farm had been hit by Ukraine.
I mean, Wildberries is a hell of a name, basically, for what appears to be like a massive logistics service, right? The like an everything store is kind of situation. And it's interesting about this. Well, the Ukrainian attacks on the Wildberries warehouses, right? Because this sounds like a very big deviation from Ukraine's sort of pattern in this war. One of the most notable aspects of the special military operation, Chris, has been that Ukraine has been incredibly careful to make sure that its attacks are on military targets, right?
Yeah.
And this is true for 2 reasons. On the one hand, if you are trying to prevent Russia from killing more Ukrainians, you kind of want to hit the missile sites before they get fired. You want to hit the ammo dumps before the ammo can get distributed to the frontline troops. You want to hit, energy refineries and whatnot, because that helps to bleed the Russian war machine. But also because if you attack civilians, you're not going to stop the Russians from being able to kill you, right?
Right.
So,
of course,
strategically speaking, there's not a lot to be gained from the Ukrainians for like attacking Russian civilian targets. And of course, the other thing is Ukraine was incredibly reliant upon outside help, especially in the first few years of the war. Attacks against civilian targets in Russia would not only have been strategically useless, they might have been strategically toxic, because it might well have caused European support to decrease, for American support to decrease. There was a lot of going on. It wasn't just sort of like, oh, the Ukrainians are being like really, nice and just kind, and, they're not really fighting as much as they could. Instead, this is a strategic choice by the Ukrainian military, and I think it was absolutely been the right.
Well,
Russia, on the other hand, they seem to be only hitting civilian targets. Like, just recently they blew up a family. They killed a whole family, right? And they did it by blowing up their apartment and then hitting it a second time.
Wow.
To make sure that any responders who came there, any first responders, could be killed as well.
Wow.
Russia engages in terror bombing because for some reason, Vladimir Putin thinks that if you just kill enough civilians, you'll get the entire country to surrender. How many times has this worked, would you say, Chris? Like, historically speaking?
Historically?
Yeah, historically.
From what I remember from just past recent, like modern history, never.
Yeah, that's basically, it's about where we are. There's 2 arguable cases, I would say. Number one, World War II, Italy is being invaded by the Allies, right? Il Duce has completely failed in everything he has ever tried to do. And now the Allies are about to start bombing Rome. And the Grand Council of Fascists are like, okay, we fucked up. Clearly, this has gone too far. They depose Mussolini, and then pretty soon the government collapses, and the Italian government sides with the Allies. They switch sides in the war. Yeah. How much of that is due to we finally got the bombers through to Rome, and how much of it was due to, well, they've already taken Sicily and they're moving up the south, and clearly this whole Hitler thing has not paid off. So it's time to find a scapegoat, and old Mussolini's got to go.
Well, yeah, that's the best part about being in charge, is that when everything goes wrong, it's still your fault.
Well, exactly. So it's an arguable case. The other arguable case would be, the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II, right, in Japan. Although there, it should be noted that those followed massive firebombing campaigns that destroyed 90% of just huge swaths of Japanese cities. The attempt to break Japanese morale worked about as well as the attempt by the Germans to break British morale during the Blitz, which is to say, not the fuck at all.
No. You just plow on. Right. You hide and you take the bombing because you're not, until you realize that the bombs are so big and so indiscriminate that holy shit. Yeah. And you could do it more than once. Yeah.
And honestly, that was really just more about getting the emperor to say, okay, boys, I'm calling time. That's it. We don't want the atomic bombs, because what if they hit me? So,
right. Yes.
Yeah. So Russia has decided to go, down this road, because who knows where it could lead. Anyway, it's gone as well for them as it's gone for everybody else throughout history. So the Ukrainian attacks against the Wildberries sites, you might think that this is a big shift. Why are they going after civilian targets now? And the thing is, they're really not. Wildberries is kind of like the Amazon of Russia, but it's really an everything store. And they are a big supplier of military equipment to soldiers.
Well, there you go.
Well, that's it. And what's interesting is that, like, the Russian military doesn't do things like provide its soldiers with body armor, Chris. If you want body armor, you got to buy it yourself, Chris.
Jeez, wow.
And where do you get it?
Well, you have to call up Amazon or Wildberries.
You go to Wildberries, exactly. So, it's interesting because this means that one of the big oligarchs, the woman who owns Wildberries, all of a sudden is facing massive losses. So this is strategically an interesting choice because it really does hurt the Russian war effort. It also hurts a major potential backer of the Putin regime. So it's, I don't know. It's an interesting shift. I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on it. It's getting smarter and smarter because obviously, you don't want to, you're basically hurting now the inner circle, because the entire thing about the war was that we were talking about it before. We're not, military experts, but they were sending a lot of people who weren't Russians into the war. And they're running out of people. I think they keep on bringing in, North Koreans.
Yeah, they're bringing in some more North Koreans, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. So it's kind of like a very extreme version of sanctions. You're making the very rich people feel it in their pocket, and they're like, well, you can't even just try to transfer that money over. It's just like, oh shit, like my money making machine has just been smashed.
Exactly.
And now I need to spend money to rebuild it, but also they know where I am. It's not like it's going to take forever. So let's move on from here. And let's talk about, just very quickly, the genius as the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, who has, once again decided to save another country's currency.
Yeah. So if you remember back last year, Scott Bessent and Donald Trump decided to prop up the Argentinian peso by buying a bunch of pesos with dollars, Yeah. And why would you want to do this? Why would you want to prop up the value of your currency? And it shouldn't surprise anyone to learn because, if your currency is worth less, imports cost more, and that drives up inflation.
Yes.
And that's been a real problem for Argentina because they have the highest rate of inflation in the entire world ever since Zimbabwe kind of bottomed out and got a new currency, basically. Yeah. So it's Argentina's not been doing so great. And Argentina is led by a big ideological ally of the Trump administration. So that sort of makes sense. The intervention into the Japanese yen, now that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, as you may or may not know, Japan has a new prime minister.
Yes.
Whose name escapes me at the moment, but I'm going to find it.
I believe she was elected last year. Was she elected last year? This year?
Yeah, I think earlier this year. But give me a second.
But was she not? Was it
Sanae Takaichi?
Was it not a surprise?
Oh yes. Yeah, because she's the head of the Liberal Democratic Party, which delightfully is not liberal, is not very democratic, and can only barely be described as a party. They're really more of like a sack. They're more a bunch of factions, Chris, like a sack full of cats that has been consistently in charge of the country since the 1940s. So.
Right.
Yeah. So they're fun times. Anyway, so Sanae Takaichi is the current prime minister of Japan, and she came in with a very, very strong support. She was able to win an election, increase her majority. Like she's, styled herself as sort of the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher type, conservative, serious, going to take charge. But she also has a plan for the Japanese economy, which has not been doing great for the last 40 years. Growth has been slow. Their debt has been huge. Inflation has been, and this is going to sound weird, too low, Chris.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the other half of inflation. You can't just not exist.
Well, that's the thing. And so, and in fact, if you have the opposite of inflation, deflation, that's when you get societal collapse. You really want to avoid that if you can. So for the Japanese state, there's been a real question of, okay, well, we need to get growth going again. How do we do this? There was attempts with Abenomics to try to really lower the interest rates, and that way they could sort of, spark domestic growth. Didn't work fantastically. So Sanae Takaichi is basically saying we're going to borrow money and do fiscal stimulus. We're going to spend money at the governmental level, and this is going to get the economy going again.
Yeah.
That is dangerous.
Right.
Because having the government spend more money when it's already running a deficit means borrowing even more money. And there's been a huge willingness to lend Japan an incredible amount of money over the years because, it's stable. It's very stable. They're a major, major economy. And there is the possibility, basically, since interest rates are so low, to borrow a bunch of money in Japan and then use that money that you've borrowed to purchase assets in the United States,
right,
at a higher rate of interest. Yes. So basically, this is what they call the carry trade.
Yes.
And it's been, it's been a hell of a thing. It's almost been like a free money machine for a whole bunch of international capital for decades now. The problem is interest rates in Japan are starting to go up.
Right.
Because all of a sudden there's more questions about, wait, are they ever going to repay the debt? Are they going to be able to repay the debt? Is that going to be a problem? Do I want to lend the money? Do I want to keep lending the money at the low interest rates that I've got? Oh, no. And this has been seen with a real weakening of the Japanese yen. Fewer people are willing to put their money into Japan to engage in the carry trade, right?
Yeah.
So the end result of all of this has been that Japan's currency has weakened by about a third.
Okay.
Which is a problem for them. Because if you have a weakening yen, that means prices of imports in Japan go up. And we're talking going up by 50%, dude.
Okay, well, that's a lot.
Exactly. So, and this is a country that famously is not exactly swimming in natural resources. It's energy. It needs to import everything.
Right? Yes.
It's steel, it's coal, just huge amounts of things that are necessary to run its incredibly advanced and modern economy. All of this comes from abroad. A weakening yen threatens that.
Yeah.
So Japan's not super happy about that. And you can see why Japan might be interested in trying to strengthen the yen, Chris.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Scott Bessent, because
now we come to Scott Bessent.
So Scott Bessent was pictured, photographed by the media with his little notepad out. And his little notepad had exactly one thing on it, Chris.
Yes.
And it was a reminder to himself to purchase $5 to $10 billion worth of Japanese yen on the currency markets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what the fuck is this about? Well, this happened just before the United States intervened into the Japanese currency markets, buying $5 to $10 billion worth of yen. trying to strengthen it, trying to keep it high.
Yeah.
And obviously, Trump was asked about this. Why would you do this? And his response is, well, Japan's been a strong ally. We've been so great together. They've been good to us so many years, except for Pearl Harbor.
Of course. Don't forget to bring up Pearl Harbor. Yes.
Literally sitting next to Miss Sanae, right next to her, like Miss Takaichi. And so not very diplomatic, I would say. But also, it's total horseshit. That's absolutely not why he's doing it. Sanae Takaichi is a conservative. She is not a MAGA person.
No.
She's not an ideological ally of the president. Yeah. This isn't like the Malay thing in that sense.
Okay.
Instead, what's going on here is this. Japan has a ton of American debt.
Yeah.
They own a huge amount that they have invested over the years because, when they were growing manufacturing power, they sold just a huge amount of goods to the United States, especially in the 1980s. That money then they did not bring back into the country in the form of yen. They kept it in dollars. And the way that you keep it in dollars is you buy U.S. government debt. You buy treasury bonds. You buy gilts, right?
Right. Which obviously the state will pay back to them at some point. That's why you buy it, so that you get dollars back.
Oh, 100%. And of course, it should be noted for decades and decades, U.S. government debt has been the safest place to park your money. Like it's the most liquid market that has ever existed for government debt. If you ever want to sell the treasury bonds that you own, there's people willing to buy it. Not a problem.
No
so
question.
It's a very safe investment. And that's kind of the issue because Japan all of a sudden really needs to get its hands on a bunch of dollars because it needs to sell those dollars to buy yen because that's how you strengthen the yen, right?
Yes.
So what if they decide to start dumping their government debt onto the market?
Well, that
to raise those dollars. Yeah, because that drives up borrowing costs for the United States, which also has a very large debt and an increasing amount of government spending is going towards servicing that debt.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons why slashing taxes on billionaires to the tune of several $1 trillion, Chris, under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, may have been a poor idea.
It may have been a poor idea, but not for the rich people.
No, not for the rich people. No. They get the tax cuts. We get the bill.
Yes.
So that's it's kind of fun. But the reason why I'm bringing it up actually isn't because of the big issues with political economy, Chris. It's the fact that he got photographed with that fucking notepad, and only one thing's on that notepad. And he's leaving it open so the press can see it.
Yes, and how did America pay for those yen?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, Chris. Well, it didn't use dollars.
Oh, well, hang on. We have so much dollars. There's so many dollars.
I know, right? We can print them as much as we like. They got a Federal Reserve and everything. Yeah, but that would make the dollar weaker, and obviously that would make imports more expensive to the United States. And there's already a cost of living crisis in the United States, so that would have looked poorly. Instead, what they did, they basically sold a shit ton of European debt that the American government held so that they could use the euros that they got to buy yen. Now, if you're a follower of economics, you know that that's not going to do shit. Like, it's still going to end up weakening the United States dollar against the yen, because all these markets are fucking liquid. Money is fungible. It's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But at least it creates plausible deniability. But what they didn't do, Chris, is tell any of the Europeans that they were about to do it.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So it's this huge thing, basically, where they piss off all of Europe in order to spend billions of dollars to prop up the currency of Japan, because that's the only way they can think of to keep Japan from selling its debt and driving up interest rates in the United States right before the fucking midterm election.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. You'll be delighted to know it hasn't worked. The yen is still dropping like a stone.
I don't know if I would use the word delighted.
Yeah. No, not so much delighted as much as just sort of like, they can't get any of it right, Chris.
It's not that they're trying to get it right. They're just trying to they're just trying to put Band-Aids over gaping wounds. I think we'll leave it there as well.
Yeah.
So effectively, this last part we're going to talk about before we go into the next section is something a bit more ridiculous than past couple things we've been talking about. 5 days ago, a bunch of people started saying that Donald Trump dining truck, and I didn't know what that meant. And looking into it,
Yep.
He was in Turkey. Air Force One was in Turkey. Donald Trump gets on Air Force One. And then apparently a dining truck used for first class food was seen pulling up to Air Force One. And then Donald Trump somehow gets off of Air Force One, gets onto the dining truck and put onto a separate plane that leaves. Now, what nobody was told was that he had actually done that. So all of his staff and all of the press were on Air Force One, which also took off and left. Now, they didn't really explain why this was happening until afterwards, where it seems that there was some kind of threat against Air Force One from Iran, because Iran is still at war with them. Donald Trump has, been bombing them on and off. And then he takes this giant, newly acquired Qatari plane over a Middle Eastern airspace. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's like a credible threat against Air Force One. To which he says, great, I'm just going to get into a smaller plane that no one's going to see me get onto. And I'm going to leave all my staff and all of these people on this bigger plane. So good luck, guys.
Chris.
And the cabinet members that came along. So good luck. I'll see you if you get back.
Well, except that they didn't know he'd done that either. Like, this is the wild thing, right? Is that, like, he flies there in the Qatari Bride plane, right? That is not secure. And then he gets a word that there's a threat against him. So it's like, I'm going to take Air Force One back home, because that is the most secure plane that has ever existed in the history of the world, right?
Yeah.
And then when he's on there, secretly goes into a little dining car and is driven to this other plane, and he gets on that flight with Pete Hegseth. Petey Higgs.
Oh, PDH.
He gets to live. Whiskey McDrinkerson. He gets to live. And also some of his young blonde servants, they got to go on there as well. Sorry, not servants, assistants. I don't know why the other word came out of my mouth.
Mistake.
But Marco Rubio. No. He gets to stay on the decoy plane with the entire Washington press corps and Caroline Leavitt, who is now leaving it. So that's fun.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Thank you. So it's just sort of like when he was talking to the press, he had actually said, there's a credible threat and whatnot, and they're always trying to kill me, and but if the plane goes down, you go down too, so
wow,
maybe you should think about a different career. And then he flees the plane in a dining car.
In a dining car, yes. I mean, because he's the smartest and he makes the best deals. And according to Caroline Leavitt, who she told CBS News, who's run by her best friend Barry Weiss, the new Air Force One is perfectly safe for the president's travels, but will receive additional upgrades and enhancements in the fall, which will take approximately 1 month to complete. So it's perfectly safe, but he can't fly in it yet. So again, I mean, the bribe plane is completely useless. Because the whole thing is I don't think they would have this issue with the old Air Force One, and I think he may have been put onto a version or the old Air Force One. I don't know if we sent 2 747s to Turkey earlier in July.
There's the Qatari Bride plane, right?
Yes.
There's the older plane that we often refer to as Air Force One, although it's worth noting, Chris, and this is an interesting fact: Air Force One is not a particular plane. Air Force One is whatever plane the president is on.
But that's the call sign for whatever plane the president is on. But apparently he got onto the vice president's Air Force Two, which obviously became Air Force One.
Right, when he was on it. So
So it's just ridiculous. So anyways, they keep on just leaping from win to win. Let's take a little break, and we'll be right back with the next section on how great it must be to be a Republican lawmaker. Ooh. And we'll be right back. And we're back.
Chris, shall we talk a little bit about the joy that is the American political system?
I think we shall. And here's how we're going to do it. A poll came out in July that just came across my screen. And it was a political poll, and it basically said, would you still vote for a candidate who was blank? And the topics were, and this is a mixture here: exaggerated military service, concealed terminal illness, photographed wearing blackface, shared classified info to a foreign government,
good Lord,
accused of workplace bullying, accepted expensive gifts from lobbyists, posted anti-Semitic comments online, convicted of DUI, accused of domestic violence, accused of domestic assault. And the people who were asked were avowed MAGA voters, Republicans at large, and Democrats. And across all of those questions, sexual assault, domestic violence, DUI, anti-Semitic comments, expensive gifts from lobbyists, workplace bullying, sharing classified info, blackface, concealing a terminal illness, exaggerated military service, both Republicans and MAGA voters had zero issues with any of that. They were all, would you vote for them? Each one of those was above 50%.
Oh, wow.
Each one of those. So when it came to Republicans at large, the lowest one, so 51% of Republicans at large would vote for somebody who posted anti-Semitic comments online. When it comes to MAGA voters, it's 58%.
Wow.
When it comes to sharing classified info to a foreign government, MAGA voters, 57% would still vote for that person. Republicans at large, 66%. When it comes, 66% would still vote for somebody who shared classified info.
Two-thirds of Republicans would vote for, I don't want to say traitor because that is a very specific meaning in the American legal system, but wow.
More espionage. The person who is at least a double agent, spy, turncoat, whatever.
For turncoat. Let's call him a turncoat.
Turncoat.
Yeah.
Accused of domestic violence, Republicans at large, 63% of them totally okay with that. 72% of MAGA totally okay with that. Oop, I don't know what's that about. Sorry.
Wow. 72%.
72%.
That's horror. That's legitimately horrifying.
Accused of sexual assault. Would you still vote for a candidate who was accused of sexual assault? 54% of Republicans at large said yes. 66% of MAGA voters said yes. For clarification, we have we have Democrats on this as well. And the Democrats in those same categories, the only ones that got over 50% of the vote were 50% approval. If you exaggerated your military service, 52% of Democrats would vote for you. Concealing a terminal illness, 55% of Democrats would vote for you. Accused of workplace bullying, 53% of Democrats would vote for you. And convicted of a DUI, 70% of Democrats would vote for you. So everything else in that list, bunch of lousy trunks. Everybody else in that list, everything else in that list, well under, or at least under 50%, and accused of sexual assault, 39%. Still probably too high. So still very high.
I would say that's way the hell too high.
Domestic violence is at 42%, still very high. But these aren't,
they're not majority.
Numbers. They're not the majority.
They're not majority. Yeah.
Whereas every single metric shown in this table, if you're a MAGA or you're Republican, according to this, a survey of 2,061 adults, you are 100% okay, or at least 66% okay. With some of this stuff, 70% okay with some of this stuff.
These things are not deal breakers to a majority of the Republican Party.
And the thing is that we've seen this. We've seen this in action, but I think we need to just discuss briefly here for the end of this section, or the end of this pod. Why is it that right-wing candidates and right-wing voters are now willing to support these kinds of people? So let's take it's Swalwell versus Miller, right? We've talked about both of them on this show, and we've also talked about the massive difference between what happened with Eric Swalwell and Graham Plattner. There was an accusation made, and as soon as it became public, when it became public, within a week, they're no longer the candidate, and they usually resigned if they were an elected official.
Well, and it should be noted that, like, in both cases, obviously there had been rumors beforehand.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Especially in the case of Plattner.
Yes.
What is interesting is that when it was clear that those rumors had substance, the accusations were credible. Like, there was not there. It really was a situation where, okay, no, accusations are literally being made, and they don't seem to be without any foundation. They don't appear to be without any merit. This is a serious thing. The Democratic Party, both at its base and at the elite level, appears to have come to the determination, well, they got to go, right?
Yeah.
So Swalwell is forced down in a few days, and Plattner, eventually, ends his campaign and puts in to withdraw his name from the ballot, right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't a big push to say, oh, well, no, like the women must be lying about what they're saying. Like there wasn't there just didn't seem to be like a huge movement to preserve the candidates at the expense of the complainants,
Yeah, there was no real defense of those who of whom were accused. They were accused. They put up their defense videos and then underneath the defense videos from the left, it's like if you're telling the truth, you can come back and stand again at a later date. I mean, it was brutal. It was fast. It was severe. But then you have people like Max Miller, who the wagons have been circled bar one little niche in the armor. And this is the question is that, conservatives, in the West, specifically America and kind of here as well, but more in America, because they have that massive religious aspect to it as well, that Christian aspect as well. They view themselves as pure, whiter than white, that they have the morality is who they are. Right. Yeah. And, they are just doing, sure, I don't want any dirty immigrants in my town, but that's fine because I watch the Christian Broadcast Network or something.
Right. Exactly.
Or I go to church, or I'm a decent person or whatever. But yet, if that poll is reflecting reality and you have, no fewer than there's no lower than 50%. 51% is the lowest it goes. And that's for posting anti-Semitic comments online. Just why do you think that they have that they're just allowing themselves to say, you know what, screw it. I don't care if Trump's accused of all these crimes. I don't care if, Fox News has lied to us directly. I don't care about corruption. All I care about is winning.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the issues here basically is what you've already identified. They've already voted for Trump, they made this man into the leader. He has a cult of personality. Everyone in the party had to bend the knee to him. The people who wouldn't got thrown out, they were purged. And everyone inside of the party has made their peace with that, right? They've decided, well, I'm going to vote for him because, burgers are too expensive. I'm going to vote for him because, Hillary Clinton didn't follow email security best practices that one time. They had their bullshit reasons. But what it came down to is that they wanted him to hurt the people that they wanted to see hurt. Because I'm sure some of them convinced themselves that the Democrats really are communists who are going to take away all of their meat and make them ride bicycles and, probably go to meetings where they have to, get trained on the proper use of pronouns. I'm sure that a bunch of them have convinced themselves that the opposition is so terrifying and so authoritarian and dangerous that anything is preferable. To stop the communists, you may have to vote for the fascists, right? But I don't think that's most of it. I think most of it is just that the right in the United States for a very, very, very long time has viewed with rage the fact that the culture more broadly doesn't valorize them in the way that it did under Reagan, the cool kids for a long time were, on the left, or at the very least not in the conservative movement. The conservative celebrities tended to be people like, freaking, oh Lord, Ben Shapiro. I'm going to say Ben Shapiro. The
podcaster.
Yeah, the podcaster, right? He's one of the great conservative celebrities, except that he's just ridiculous. He's a ridiculous man.
Yes.
The media, the movies, all of the interesting bits of American culture have just not been conservative, and they tried building their own separate conservative milieu. They created their own news networks. They created their own bubble, and inside of that bubble, things have just festered, Chris.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So here's what I think has happened. Because that bubble led them to vote for Donald Trump, right? For whatever reason. Now that they found themselves actively supporting, vocally supporting, consistently supporting a rapist, a guy who is a thief, a guy who is a crook, a con artist of the highest degree, a man who has committed crimes, who has been convicted of felonies, a man who has ordered murders. We know that this has happened because he brags about it all the time, killing people in the Caribbean. This man is the worst man to have ever been president of the United States. And if they admit that to themselves, if they take seriously what it is that they have done, then they will have to admit that they have made a series of terrible mistakes. And they would have to say, I have no political judgment. I've been just totally wrong about this. And that's shameful. And people will suffer a lot to avoid feeling the feeling of shame.
Maybe. I just keep on going back to the fact that there is no one number below 50% for any one of those things that I said. And it's either that you have to you're thinking about yourself right now and saying, I have now, nailed my colors to the mast. I have to support them no matter what.
Right.
And I mean, I hear what you're saying about as well, like kind of the celebrity, the culture aspect, that the culture has definitely left the party, where you would, in the 70s, you'd have John Wayne, or the 60s, you'd have all these big movie stars and kind of thought makers who were more or less still conservative. Right. But they aren't the same conservatives as they are now. It wasn't until what's his man, Roger Ailes, creates Fox News and creates the echo chamber that, that just keeps on, it's like a copy of a copy. It just or just keeps on milding down, something good into something really, really, really gross. Yeah. And we're clearly living in the world where, let's say Clacton, for example. We're living in the world where this is okay, because Clacton, 1,000 more people voted for Nigel Farage than before, right?
Right.
So in the past 2 years, he's got a little bit more of the vote. I mean, a little bit more numerically of the vote. He got a higher percentage because of just math. It's just a different way. A lot of people are going to read into that, but I think when you talk about 1,000 more votes,
he convincingly beats a bin, Chris.
Yes, the bin. The bin lost the trash. But I'm like, I think that the fact that 22,000 people still looked at Nigel Farage and said, that's my guy. And despite everything else that's happening, despite the fact that these people, none of them are going to see £5 million. I'm going to make that big sweeping statement now. No one's handing an average person for no reason £5 million because they need it for their security, despite the fact that you're being offered security left, right, and center. Right. So I think there's actually a Bill Clinton thing he had said. He's like, he had met some members of the public and they're just like, man, I really, really like you, but we're too far gone now. I can't vote for you. They said we're too far gone. Effectively, we're too deep into the MAGA world that we can't allow ourselves to come back. And I guess that is the ultimate bastardization of our politics, and across the world, across the Western world. You see it in Brazil, you see it in France, you see it in Germany, where the culture of your politics, and it's almost always on the right, is your identity, as opposed to the left, which, like I say, the left splits, the right unites. Yeah. So right now, the left is trying its best not to split, despite all the hard work of moderates saying that we gotta ditch Abdul El Sayed in Michigan. Like, we're all fucked.
Third way people. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It has been interesting to see that after these knockdown, drag out primary fights in Wisconsin and in Michigan, where on the one hand in Wisconsin, right, it's the moderate candidate, the guy who, collects Legos and looks like a total nerd, but won against Francesca Hong. And then immediately the two come together and we're like, yep, well, the party's unifying again and we're all working towards victory in November. And that's what a party should do, right? If you're going to have democracy inside of a party, there have to be ways of dealing with dissent. There have to be ways of dealing with disagreement. There have to be ways of saying, okay, we're going to put this to the voters, and the voters are going to make the decision, and we're going to respect that because that's what democracy is, right?
Yeah.
And
but that's what you're supposed to do. It's called grown-up politics. You don't always get your way, and you need to figure out a way to work your way to get the best result.
Right.
And yet, what's happened is either you find the best way to get the best result and be able to transmit that message to the people, or the reverse, as you do what the Republicans have done, by a whole bunch of news networks. Now you can include in that CBS. They're trying to get a hold of CNN. They're trying to get a hold of HBO.
That's the playbook. That's what Orban did in Hungary.
That's what
Putin did in Russia.
They want you to think.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? But yeah, no, that is the playbook. That is the competitive authoritarian playbook. So I mean, so they've done a lot of really good work. But I think we should end on this concept here.
All right.
It isn't universal. So I wrote down on my tablet here, Iran. So it's, again, the circle of politics. I don't give a shit. Clearly, people don't give a shit if you're MAGA, you don't give a shit if your candidate was accused of sexual assault or domestic violence or anti-Semitic comments or whatever. But when it comes to Iran, and now it's affecting your gas price, and it's almost, and it's a weird thing because like that was a promise that was broken. When it comes to promises, that still seems to matter because the approval rating of Trump is obviously very low. We'll see how the world, fleshes out once we get to November. But like, it's that stuff is ephemeral, like I don't know this person. They haven't attacked me. They haven't attacked anyone that I know. But again, those numbers aren't at 100%. So obviously there are some people when they saw it, it got them at home and they said, okay, I'm out. I got them at home. I'm out. But as long as it's out there in the third circle of politics and you're like, oh, fuck it, I don't care. But when it comes to Iran, when it comes to breaking your promise, when it comes to starting wars, when it comes to your raising prices and not lowering prices, all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on. This is now affecting me. And now I may still not care about the crimes, but I do care about what's attacking me.
Right. And I think we'll just sort of, I'd like to leave it with this, right? Right now, it is the right that has gone mad. And I don't think you can look at this poll and say it reveals anything other than a political movement that is fundamentally sick at a basic level. Right now, it's the right that's doing that. It wasn't always the right that was doing that. There was certainly a time, the 1940s, 1950s, into the 60s, where you had people on the left who had just completely given over any idea of decency in politics, or like there are some things that you just can't do, and you could see it in the tankies, right? The people who decided that, for the greater revolution, we have to support Comrade Stalin as he murders Hungarian people in the streets. This is fine. I'm sure this is fine. Right.
Yeah.
Like we're like, because the goal was so much greater than any individual. And obviously that shit's basically gone. That has no place in left-wing politics anywhere. With any kind of sway,
Yeah.
But it took some time, I think, for the far left, basically in the United States and in other countries, to sort of come around to, the Soviet Union was a terrible fucking idea. Actually, it just did not work. It was monstrous, and it committed untold crimes.
Yeah.
I don't think that the right in the United States ever really went through that. I don't think that they ever, because they were on the winning side of World War II, right?
Yeah.
They never had to say to themselves, the ideology was the problem. The problem was the fascism. The problem was the Nazism.
Yeah.
Instead, they could always put it as, no, the problem was the Germans.
Yes.
And we beat the Germans.
Yes.
So therefore, there's just nothing to worry about, is there?
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. And I think there is a lot to it that the right hasn't had a collapse of its kind of underlying principles because, as long as you have a lot of money, even if your principals die for a little bit, they don't really die. They just go on life support. You
can afford really good medical care when you got squillions.
When you got squillions, yes, you can live forever, or at least your ideas can live forever. So I think with that, we are going to move on finally to some good news. And the good news is that SNL UK has coming back for a second season starting in September of this month. And I think that's just great. I think that SNL UK, I think they did a really good job. They have some really funny sketches. They had one about pork products, and there's like a pork council advert, and it turned out to be an actual advert from the 1980s that was just everybody kind of knew, and it was very funny. And then it led me to go watch the original advert. I'm just like, oh wow, like I find myself actually actively laughing at it.
That's a proper deep cut situation. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's being really kind of kooky, kind of irreverent. And it's got a little bit of kind of the cheapness, because it's not like current SNL like in America, which is very rich and it's got a lot of cool stuff, and it's been around for 50 years. So that makes sense. It's like they're kind of where SNL was 50 years ago, where it's just new and
scrappy.
It's scrappy. It's really scrappy. Yes. It's got moxie.
In the best traditions of the British, garden shed. We're going to build a fighter plane in the garden shed. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. We'll get this.
We'll figure it out. We'll build a rocket in the rocket shed, and then in the shed. Yes.
And that is where the genius comes from. So good for them, I say. Hooray.
Yes. Hurrah. Yeah. So I'll catch up with them on YouTube. Maybe I'll watch it on Sky somewhere else, not here. But yeah, so I think that's it for this week. Thanks for listening. And as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we're your doctors.
Not doctors.
Good night.